the Alliance Conspiracy Files. I'm DJ Weasel.
And I'm co-host DJ Slide.
Alright, we got DJ Slide standing in today. Still waiting for DJ Vinny to come back, so, or DJ Vinny, sorry, Tricky Rich to come back. He'll be back sometime. So, in the meantime, we'll just keep bringing other co-hosts on and just do what we do. So, today we are talking about the Democratic National Corruption. So, anybody want to comment or say anything, feel free to comment down here in the section, and we'll answer any questions if we can. Beyond that, we're going to just pretty much bitch about the government and give some of our own opinions. So, we're going to start off with that leftist bitch Nancy Pelosi. I don't know if you guys have been keeping up with the news, but man, she's been up to some crap lately. Like, rules don't apply to her, like going into that salon, you know, breaking the law, doing all that stuff. So, caught on video, and then, it's not her fault. It's the salon's fault now. And then she didn't know that she couldn't go in there on one-on-one. Yeah. Yeah, okay. Like we believe a word that comes out of her mouth anyways.
I never did, never will.
Me neither.
I don't know if that could be heard, but let's get closer.
That's what she said. So, how's everybody doing? How's everybody doing? This is not your second stimulus update.
And this is not the third. We still waiting on the first. No, I'm just kidding. We're not.
But, yeah, there's a lot of things. We got some topics to go over today, starting with, let's see, where's my topic screen? Here we go. So we're going to be talking about, there goes my mic. Dang it. I didn't put install mic on that channel. That's all right. No. Okay, HR 87. Okay, so we're going to start off with the HR 8791, the Homeland Security Terrorist Bill, something like that. So I don't know if you guys have followed us. We touched a little base on this last week, or about 2 weeks ago. So this is what we're talking about here. So watch this video here, and if you have any comments or opinions, definitely let us know. So you get this video up here.
Congress shall now vote for approval of H.R. 8791, the Homeland Terrorism Preparedness Bill. Said bill requests emergency response funding up to and including, this section is classified, dollars to prepare for a national level terrorist attack and or attack from classified. Funding for first responder personnel and vehicles would be doubled if said attack leads to more than 80% of national population being affected by classified. This funding shall commence in conjunction with the first attack on classified or the first large-scale outbreak of classified, dependent upon which comes first. Civilian and military units shall be trained in containment and combat of classified, including irradiated classified with possibility of classified airborne, classified flesh-eating, classified and or all of the above in such event as classified spewing, classified escape are released or otherwise become uncontrollable. Air Force units may also be directed to combat said classified due to their enormous size and otherworldly strength. Should event occur in urban areas, that's classified, far surpassing our darkest nightmares. Should casualties exceed classified body disposal actions shall be halted and associated resources shall be reallocated to classified underground, classified protected birthing centers. A new Bill of Rights shall be drafted and approved by classified. Having now reviewed the bill, I ask you to please cast your votes.
So on that video, that's kind of a very classified. You hear that word a lot. So with that video, that being said, that video playback, that video was posted a few years back, and I guess it was part of the Homeland Security Act or something like that. Oh, hello there, Miss Angel. How you doing? So pretty much every other word in that bill was classified. So if you kind of play it back and over and over and over and kind of dissect it, then you come down with ideas like what are they talking about with the new Bill of Rights and stuff like that. And it says that it will, the new Bill of Rights will be drafted and then it will be voted by classified. So That being said, is that like another government? Is that a deep state, or is that alien invasion? Who knows? You know? Comments?
I'll put my honest thought into it. It does sound like something's definitely going on out there. Maybe it could be aliens, maybe not. We could be looking at a whole another thing of maybe fake. But once again, this can be coming from a county that we may not, had trouble with before, and with everything going on, I wouldn't put it past it being in our county trying to look to attack.
Right.
But I'm going to hope for aliens.
Right. And then also here recently in the news, Donald Trump did actually admit and made mention about the deep state or the secret government. So that's starting to come to light. And then if you look at all the stuff with the Democratic Party, they're dragging their feet still. Dragging their feet with the stimulus, dragging their feet with these COVID-19 relief bills and all that stuff because they want bailout money because all the Democratic states that failed in their expenses and all that stuff, when they drove all their cities to shambles, they want everybody else to pay for it, and they want money in their pockets, and screw the working class. Screw the working class. They want the rich to get richer and poor people to go homeless or die, basically. Same with this COVID-19 stuff. I think it's definitely being played into a matter where it's being made a lot bigger than it actually is, and you have the numbers, the death numbers, and the infected numbers that are completely, they're already talking about the numbers don't add up, or they're making up the numbers, and then the false positives and all that stuff. So, also, there was also a news ad that was just a day or so ago about a woman who had passed away in February, and then their family got a letter stating that she was diagnosed with COVID-19. Yet she died in February, and they said she was tested on the 20th of June, so that makes no sense, of course. So it's a little wickedly weird there. What else we got there?
So I have some notes of my own against yours. We have that President Trump admits. Why don't Biden take the test to see if he suffers from dementia?
Yeah, that was the thing. This is something I'm going to bring up. I'm going to bring that up too. There are several videos. Come over here and get that screen capture for you. But I don't know if you listen to the speeches that Biden gives.
That's kind of sad. That's why we talk about gun rights.
Let's see. Yeah, we'll try this one.
No.
Of course, skip the
Get this right.
And why should the voters believe that you can win the national election?
I was a Democratic caucus. You ever been to a caucus? No, you haven't. You're a lying, dog-faced pony soldier.
You're a damn liar, man. That's not true. And no one has ever said that?
No man has a right to raise a hand to a woman in anger. And so we have to just change the culture, period, and keep punching at it and punching at it and punching at it.
If you want to check my shape on it, let's do push-ups together, man. Let's run. Let's do whatever you want to do.
It is important that Iowa and Nevada have spoken, but look. Get your words straight, Jack. I'm Jill Biden's husband, and I work for Cedric Richmond. Are you joking? No. You're too old to go for it. Granddaughters not only love their dads, their grandpops, they always like them, and that's the great thing. Thank you, baby. Thanks. I want you to meet Finnegan.
Linguistic problems, I guess you would say.
Yeah, with the last part, and then the last video where he's saying, he's not the only president. Shouldn't say president. The only guy that has done anything like that. I think Trump sucked comments he said before his election, first election year, and many actions that he did that was improper as a man running for president.
Right. That first thing Joe Biden to do if he's elected is he's going to raise taxes. He said that on live television. He has, let's see, what's the difference here? Yes, that's right. If Donald Trump wins the election for this year, the Democrats have threatened on live TV that they're going to take presidency by force. I'll play later on that one too as well.
Please hang with us, folks, as we're looking for a certain video to show you guys where it shows Hillary Clinton threatening to take office by force. So bear with us as we're trying to locate the video.
Said, we owe Donald Trump an open mind and the chance to lead. I meant it. Every president deserves that. And Trump came in with so much set up for him, a strong economy, plans for managing crises, including a pandemic. Yes, we Democrats would have disagreed with him on many things, but if he had put his own interests and ego aside, seen the humanity in a child ripped from her parents at the border, or a protester calling for justice, or a family wiped out by natural disaster, that would have been a good thing for America and the world. I wish Donald Trump knew how to be a president, because America needs a president right now. Throughout this time of crisis, Americans keep going, checking on neighbors, showing up to jobs as first responders, hospitals, grocery stores, nursing homes. Yes, it still takes a village. And we need leaders equal to this moment of sacrifice and service. We need Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. Everyone has a story about Joe's caring and empathy. I remember him calling after my mother, Dorothy, died, and we talked about being raised by strong women. The best testament to Joe is how he's cared for his family. And how great is it that Dr. Jill Biden plans to keep teaching as First Lady. And Joe picked the right partner in Kamala. She's relentless in the pursuit of justice and equity, and she's kind. When her press secretary, Tyrone Gale, was dying of cancer, she dropped everything to be with him in his final moments. I know something about the slings and arrows she'll face, and believe me, this former district attorney and attorney general can handle them all. So this is the team to pull our nation back from the brink. But they can't do it without us. For 4 years, people have told me, I didn't realize how dangerous he was. I wish I could do it all over. Or worse, I should have voted. Look, this can't be another woulda, coulda, shoulda election. If you vote by mail, request your ballot now and send it back right away. If you vote in person, do it early. Become a poll worker. Most of all, no matter what, vote. As Michelle Obama and Bernie Sanders warned us, if Trump is reelected, things will get even worse. That's why we need unity now more than ever. Remember back in 2016 when Trump asked, what do you have to lose? Well, now we know. Our health care, our jobs, our loved ones, our leadership in the world, and even our post office. But let's set our sights higher than getting one man out of the White House. Joe Biden and Kamala Harris are going to give us so much to vote for. Let's vote for the jobs that Joe's plan will create. Clean energy jobs to fight climate change, caregiving jobs with living wages. Vote for emergency relief that lifts small businesses and saves hardworking people from foreclosures and evictions. It's wrong that billionaires got $400 billion richer during the pandemic while millions lost their $600 a week in extra unemployment. Vote for the parents and teachers struggling to balance children's education and safety, and for healthcare workers fighting COVID-19 with little help from the White House. Vote for paid family leave and health care for everyone, for Social Security, Medicare, and Planned Parenthood. Vote for dreamers and their families. Vote for law enforcement purged of racial bias that keeps all our streets safe. Vote for justice for George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, and Ahmaud Arbery, because Black lives matter. Vote for honest elections so we, not a foreign adversary, choose our president. Vote for the diverse, hopeful America we saw in last night's roll call. And don't forget, Joe and Kamala can win by 3 million votes and still lose. Take it from me. So we need numbers overwhelming so Trump can't sneak or steal his way to victory. Text VOTE 30330 to get started. 100 years ago yesterday, the 19th Amendment to the Constitution was ratified.
Democrats have made it very clear they plan to put Joe Biden in the White House in January, whether he wins the election or not. Watch.
Joe Biden should not concede under any circumstances because I think this is going to drag out, and eventually I do believe he will win if we don't give an inch and if we are as focused and relentless as the other side is.
Another angry rich lady. Boy, there are a lot of those around. Well, today, Jeff Bezos' personal newspaper, The Washington Post, reported that violence is likely if Joe Biden doesn't win, but of course not predicted if he does win, which tells you everything. And according to the Boston Globe, Biden's surrogate, John Podesta, has been planning for the possibility that Biden won't concede and that the military will get involved and make sure he's president. It's hard to believe anyone would say that out loud, but people are saying that out loud. So what is going to happen in November? Vince Colonnese has gamed it out. He's a radio show host at WMAL in Washington and an editor at the Daily Caller. We're happy to have him on tonight. Vince, thanks so much for coming on. So what do you think, what are the scenarios? What's likely to happen when Election Day?
Well, as you know, politics is typically very hard to predict. This one is not hard to predict at all. This Election Day is setting up to be a dumpster fire, and an unquenchable one, actually. You know, a lot of people think back to the chaos of the 2000 election, pregnant chads, hanging chads, looking at ballots in Florida, thinking, boy, I hope that never happens again. I'm sorry, that is a maskless walk in the park compared to what we're about to experience. And what I mean by that is This year, experts predict that upwards of 156 million Americans will cast a ballot in the presidential election. That's a huge number. And some 80 million of those will be cast by mail. This is unprecedented. We are overhauling our election system this year in a way that is really meaningful in one of the most fraught political environments that anyone has seen who's alive today. So in order to do that, does the mail system work? Well, there are a lot of question marks about that, especially because we've had so many primaries this year already. And look at what happened in Nevada, in Pennsylvania, in New York, where 84,000 ballots were just disappeared. That was 1 out of every 4 voters not counted for. They were rejected in New York. How could you have a system where a single battleground state is in question because of a lapse like that? That is going to be a disaster.
My sense is that Democrats plan to win this election in the weeks after Election Day with lawyers. So if it's a contest between the parties on the question of who's got more lawyers, the Democrats obviously have a massive advantage. It's the party of lawyers. Do you get the feeling that's their program?
Yes, they have an army of lawyers and an unquenchable desire to win. You heard it vocalized there by one of the most famous Democrats, Hillary Clinton, saying that under no circumstance should Joe Biden concede this election. John Podesta, as you mentioned, was her campaign chairman. The war game that they gamed out in June was essentially this, that come the election, he would refuse to concede playing Joe Biden, and that he would challenge the results of the Electoral College. He would manipulate the actual electors to the Electoral College. And in their war game scenario, 3 states, Washington, Oregon, California, all 3 of the states on the western seaboard threatened to secede from the Union. And these are not fringe people. This is the center of the Democrat Party, John Podesta. That is a big deal, and they say they want to wait for the military at that point to figure out who's president of the United States. That was, by the way, a scenario where Joe Biden loses the election. It's a gigantic deal. So I think there really is only one solution to all of this, and it's we've got to get the polls open. We have very little time, but it is of immense importance that people vote in person. If Americans can't have confidence in their election system, the whole thing falls apart. We have such low trust in our institutions today at all levels, government, media, everywhere. If you lose faith in your election, that's how you become third world. Open up the polls. Congress can use its compulsory capabilities, threaten funding, force these states to reopen, whatever you have to do. Enfranchise every American voter you possibly can. Because right now, the state's governors are shutting down polls across the country, and it is safe to vote. Doctors Fauci and Dr. Birx, they say it's safe to get in line and cast a vote. Unless you're in that very vulnerable population, then go ahead, cast that mail-in ballot. But we need a lot of confidence in this election result, and we need it quickly.
I think that's a very, very smart point, and it's something that Republicans in Congress, not one of the sharpest groups in America, need to be reminded of. So thank you for reminding them of that.
Open the polls. Thank you. Thank you.
Open the polls.
Hey, I don't know if you heard, but we just had a big development in the unfolding spy game.
All right, so that was that video. So if you guys have any comments about that, that's especially with Hillary Clinton saying not to concede, or not for Joe Biden to concede if he loses the election. In other words, meaning that they're going to try and take the White House by force. She had also mentioned about using military aid to remove Donald Trump if Trump wins the election, and all that jazz. So any comments on that? Just comment on it. Get some feedback and stuff like that. You can also call us in here at the studio at 1-440-538 something 8591. I still don't know my own phone number. I've read this phone for how many months there, Angel? June, July, August, September, 4 or 5 months. So one of these days I'll have my mind.
My one comment on that is I don't see her removing Donald Trump by force as military, because him being president, doesn't the military have the answer to him as well? That's my only comment there.
Oh, you also have senators and congressmen that don't follow this order as well.
Well, that is true. They also say follow rules, but they don't.
I mean, think about it. If you want Biden as president, then check out like Portland and all these companies that states that are in shambles because they're encouraging the protest, the violent protesting and the destruction of their cities and monuments and all that stuff. And that's the kind of president we're looking for by becoming president.
I think this is where America needs to put their foot down and rise up, is where they take the rich out of office and put the poor man in office, because the poor man knows a lot more about America and what's going on with the world being poor and the struggle and everything else, versus a rich guy stating that he knows it, but yet he doesn't. He's just looking at numbers.
Correct. I mean, think about it. We are the only country right now that does not have a plan in place to take care of its citizens. Every other country has that, that monthly aid that their citizens get, from the government due to this pandemic and shutdowns and restrictions and all that stuff to keep everybody going. Our government seems to not give a flying shit for its people. That's the way the Democrats are perceiving themselves. No matter what the Republicans say, the Democrats say no. No matter what the Democrats say, the Republicans say no. So no matter what, they cannot agree. They can't agree to disagree. And the only thing that they can do is say, oh, we're going to attempt to meet. And we get paid all this money, and within the last 20 or so days, they've met what I think the most that they actually sat down and met was made 40 minutes. And they're getting paid all this money to do that, and it's driving me nuts. Absolutely nuts. All right, so we're going to take a short little break real quick, and then we're going to come back, and so we'll see you here in just a few minutes. Yes, dear. Click on share. How do I share the link? Click share. There should be a share button.
You gotta hit a certain button, then you hit share.
Where am I?
Looking for the right DJ or karaoke host? Look no further. Shots Club Entertainment for all your DJ and karaoke needs. Karaoke music and video. Shots Club Entertainment. And if you think that rocks, several DJs, MCs, and karaoke hosts for all your needs, including DJ Weasel, DJ Big J, MC Still, DJ Jarhead, DJ Phoenix, DJ Sweets, DJ Chuckle, and more. Shots Club Elite Party. Shots Club Entertainment, sporting the biggest media library in the state of Ohio, period. And we don't have it, we will get Shots Club. Shots Club Entertainment is the only entertainment company where we party hard. For booking information, contact us at 440-541-2896 or on the web at www.shotsclubent.com.
Where am I?
Guest in the studio with us today. So we got Mr. Smo here. That's where I nickname him at. So call him Mr. Big Smo here.
And then we got Big AJ in the house.
AJ in the house. So we're talking about some of the things that we're going to be discussing in the future of the season too. So we're going to be, like the season in the trailer, we're going to be talking about, extraterrestrial intelligence, and do you think we're alone in the universe, and the theory of time travel, all kinds of stuff like that. So anything conspiracy we'll be talking about. If you guys have anything that you'd like to talk about, hit us up in the comments or call us right here in the studio. And got the number on here, I do believe, scrolling. Might be someone we've seen, so.
I think we're on episode 4, that's what you're asking?
No, I'm on my phone, the studio number. Phone number.
Phone number? Yeah, we need to write that down.
So once again, that's 440-538. Go ahead, Angel. 8591. I swear I'm going to get it. You should write that down. 8591.
What was it?
8591. I know the area code and the first 3 digits by heart. It's the last 4 I don't remember yet. But, pull up a seat, grab yourself a cold drink, and listen to our bullshit that we got for you. So.
Got me a little horsey to listen to.
Yeah, that's hi, I'm Mr. We're broadcasting live right down here in the Alliance Clubhouse out of Ohio. We got Mama T and DJ Angel in the clubhouse at the bar watching and having a few drinks and laughing their asses off at us, making fun of us over there. Probably. Hey, you guys making fun of us over there? Are you sure? Promise?
Oh, come on.
I don't believe you.
And the results are in. It determines it's a lie.
Yeah. Yeah, sorry, Smo.
You are the liar.
Jerry. Round one, fight.
Hold on, let's do that real quick. Hold on, bring it back around. Hold on. It goes like this, honestly. There you go.
Sorry about that slide. Angel said the bar's closed.
Oh.
What?
What about after hours?
Hey, man.
So I got 30 minutes till last call.
If I order my wine, we are still legal until 11, okay?
No, it's 10, not 11. Let's get that right. Hold on, folks. We don't need vacancies just kicking indoors here.
No, we just mess with you. Promises there.
It's going to go ring till Christmas.
Yeah, who'd have thought that a bunch of DJs would get together and start a conspiracy channel?
I mean, we also have the new one we're going to be working on coming up here shortly, guys. We're going to be working on like a late night talk show is what we're going to be working on.
Yeah, that won't have any comedy shows then.
Yeah,
that's
don't have it ready for it, but just keep tuned. We're going to have that rolling, hopefully, maybe next month.
And DJ Click, if you're tuning in, or if you do tune in at any point, because I know you're subscribed to, get a hold of me, because I'd like to talk to you about the DPS shows. So, that being said, moving on. Yeah. Oh, so you hear me? Barely hear me.
Test, 1, 2, Mike.
Can you hear me now? Is that better? Tricky Richard, let me know in the comments if you can hear me better now, because I guess you couldn't hear me.
I didn't even know they counted.
No, they messaged me on Messenger.
Okay.
So, for the volume issues, I apologize. New board and new studio, so we're working some kinks out yet. Trying to get everything going. It's better? Alright.
My voice sounds good?
Well, yeah, it's because we're in broadcast mode, so that's how it's going to sound. There's nothing I can do about that. Is there a bunch of echo on the broadcast? Yeah, there's nothing I can do about that. It's
too late to tell.
And my effects are completely off, so I know it's not an effect setting. My effects are completely off, so I know it's not an effect setting. So it has something to do with the broadcast mode or whatever, so. We'll work on it as we progress through season 1 stuff. Yay. Yes. I did. the mic is as loud as I can make it right now without it feeding back. So. No. We're stuck with what we got right now. Until I work the kinks out. I can't, for some reason, on this board, my auxiliary send 1 and 2, it's not receiving a signal through the computer, so I have to use the control room system to broadcast. So once I get that figured out, hopefully we'll be better. Yeah, big difference. How so? You can do more with 2 than you can with 1. It's like Abso, brother. 2 heads are better than 1. It is a lot. It's a lot of buttons and knobs and yeah. If I had that way, I'd have a board twice the size of this. Yeah.
The 2 heads,
Okay.
Alright, just
I think your sexual adventures with a cow. I don't think it goes along in this show right now. Yo, unless you want to play a blues commercial. Yeah. Get John Cena to ride it in a cow. Sup, brother? How you doing, man? Blues. Alright, here we go. Okay. Alright, let's get back on topic here. Okay, so. We're going to wing it. We're just going to wing it.
I think we have some things here on the back, though. Well, my presentation now. There we go. So we did talk about the Republican and Democrat, right? About the freedom, freedom of speech, the church and school.
The hell was that? It sounds like an elephant fell over upstairs. What? You said what? Damn, Frank, you need to lose some weight, bro.
Oh,
you sounded like a freaking elephant falling over upstairs.
Hey, Smo, I'm gonna need $20 for you so I can fix my step stool in my truck. Wait, what? Literally, he broke the support thing of it. I think because last time I took you, I noticed it right after the support. Yeah, the passenger side, the step up. Or on the left side. Yeah. On the passenger door.
Hey there, DJ Phoenix, how you doing? Welcome to the show. I think this episode we're just kind of messing around and playing with shit. So.
All right, let's go ahead and get back on the case here. So we did talk about the Republican and Democrat, the freedom of speech.
The Democrats. Democrats. S-L-D-U-M-B-ocrats. Yeah. Democrats. Hi, I'm Joe Biden. I represent the Democratic Party. Please vote for me if you want your country to be fucked.
Please call in at 1-800-899-266-581. No, do not call that number. I don't know if that's legit. But should we go ahead and talk about these COVID numbers, rules of COVID, the sports around the COVID election here?
Do it.
Fuck it.
I didn't hear a word you said. I'm sorry. I was looking at a message on my phone. Honey, go get my boots.
It is open. It is open.
Oh, and by the way, conditioner is better. Conditioner! I do see that, or hear that meaning. There is a lot of echo. And I have the effects turned all the way up, and I still haven't worked the kink out yet, so I'm sure I'll figure it out at some point. On the next episode of the Alliance Conspiracy Files. In a world.
In the world
In a world, the world is taken over by a pandemic. Okay, we need humanities now. And here comes Super Bob.
Hey, what's up, Mikey? We got Mikey in the house. How you doing with it?
He's on the other side of the glass.
Yeah, you want the other side of the glass, bro.
He's like, he can't not excuse at the moment.
I'm co-host. No, it's yours.
All right, so so we covered HR. I did it again. I gotta go to the top of the screen because we didn't write the number down. So we talked about the HR 8791, the Homeland Terrorism Surveillance Bill. Whatever it was classified. Still working on that one. Another person that you tune into, so I need to give this shout out. So make sure you check out the Alex Jones channel, because Alex Jones has been doing this kind of show for a very long time. And he's very, very repeatable and a lot more experience for one. So we're working on it. Yeah. But check out Alex Jones because he's got some seriously good opinions and topics that he discusses, especially with what's going on today. So make sure you check out his channel. I'm a subscriber as well. Don't forget,
as Alex Jones says, you are resistance.
So, moving on. So, violence continues across the nation. Of course, Portland is one of the biggest ones because you get the cities that are burning and all this stuff, the bullshit going on. But, so we're going to get back to that here in a few minutes. We are going to take a short break, and we'll be right with you. So, break number 2, here we go. Check out our weekly schedule for the Outlaw Age Radio. We also broadcast on Periscope TV, Twitch, and a couple other platforms. So, check us out on there, and we'll be back in a few minutes.
Where am I?
Welcome to Hannity. Breaking tonight, we are tracking multiple developing stories, including this one. Yes, from San Francisco. Look at your screen. Fox News has exclusively obtained this security footage showing Nancy Pelosi, the Speaker of the House, at least in name only, getting her hair done at a San Francisco salon, despite local officials forcing all salons to remain closed because of coronavirus concerns. Well, as per usual, the rules don't apply to Nancy Pelosi. The owner of that salon is infuriated. We have all of those details and video coming up. Also tonight, evidence has emerged that I, yours truly, and others were illegally monitored by our government. Full details and a full report from John Sullivan. Also tonight, we'll do something the mob and the media will never do, a special Hannity investigation into the Democrats' radical socialist agenda. We'll take a deep dive tonight into the Bernie Biden manifesto. And later, we'll also unravel the latest baseless smears from the media mob, of course, the #1 donors to the Democratic Party. Tonight, though, it is clear Democrats, they're terrified, they're desperate. Their candidate, we all know he's weak and feeble. Now, their radical socialist platform is the most extreme of any major party in history. The riots they once, well, pretty much all out, wouldn't say a negative thing about, lied about, denied were even happening. They told us they were peaceful. Then, of course, they tried to ignore them. And as a result of their lies, their failure of leadership, well, this is now completely out of control. These cities and states that have been controlled for decades by liberal Democrats are now war zones. Americans of every background, every demographic, every race, they are fleeing the Democratic Party in droves tonight. The Democratic enclave of Portland, Oregon, just experienced yet another night of rioting and mayhem. This time, rioters attempting to burn down a large occupied condo building where Portland's supportive mayor of anarchy, that's Mayor Ted Wheeler, apparently lives. Now, I wonder if fake news CNN considers this, oh yeah, see that picture? Look at that picture, to be a mostly peaceful fire, peaceful rioting. Either way, the police were forced to declare it a riot, and not before arsonists starting to feed the flames with debris, a wooden picnic table, fireworks. Now, do keep in mind that dozens of innocent men, women, and children live in that building. And guess what? These far-left demonstrators, peaceful protesters, better known as anarchists, they tried to burn it to the ground. Many other buildings in the area were also vandalized, windows shattered, businesses looted. Been watching this now for over 100 nights. It was just another night, typical day, typical evening in Portland, Oregon, a city whose dopey far-left mayor and far-left governor still refuse any and all attempted help from the president, who's basically begging them to help restore law and order. The president keeps saying daily he stands ready to help any American city or state in every way possible. But he's usually, unless he invokes the Insurrection Act, guess what? They're supposed to ask him. Typically, this is how it works. Governors and mayors, they ask for the federal help. And guess what? The president has promised to offer it, give it all. And that means mobilizing National Guard in times of lawlessness. We know how to beat back protesters. There are tools at police's disposal, non-lethal, tear gas, pepper spray. Dozens of Democratic mayors and governors apparently would rather watch their cities burn than dare coordinate with President Trump. It is sad, it is petty, frankly repulsive and disgusting. It leads to real consequences, including death and destruction. In cities where federal help has been requested, the violence has been squashed. It has been done over. Kenosha, Wisconsin, for example, the latest example, well, order has now been restored with the help of Donald Trump and the National Guard. And even Kenosha's Democratic mayor admitted, yep, the National Guard has been extremely helpful. By the way, Portland, New York, Seattle, Chicago, Los Angeles, San Francisco, learn from the mayor of Kenosha.
I will tell you, though, that the National Guard has been extremely helpful, and we feel comfortable that we can keep the president safe and keep the public safe. Mostly we need to try to make sure that there's calm in the community, and that is what we are hoping to maintain.
And after request, the president was able to restore law and order and safety and security in Minnesota and, of course, our nation's capital, Washington, D.C. That's right. The president did his job to keep people safe and secure. Sadly, in Kenosha, before the Guard was called in and order was restored, dozens of businesses were absolutely wrecked, with many completely burned to the ground. Today, the president, he toured the devastation and announced his administration was allocating $1 million for local law enforcement, $4 million in aid to the businesses that were destroyed, and $42 million to the state of Wisconsin to bolster public safety efforts. Today, one store owner had this to say about the president's visit, that the mob and the media, and of course Democrats, are saying can't happen, it can't happen. It happened, and it went along fine. Take a look.
Coming today, everybody here does. We're so thankful that we got the federal troops in to help, because once they got here, things did calm down quite a bit. And our city police and sheriff and fire departments are awesome.
This might work.
Hi, it's Sam Barker here from the Motley Fool. Behind me is Landmark Mall, or what used to be. What once was.
They worked harder than you can believe.
And look at your screen. Look at the crowds of supporters all in Wisconsin. They line the street, street after street, mile after mile, to see President Trump's motorcade drive by. Of course, Joe Biden, he never bothered to visit Kenosha. He hasn't left the East Coast in a long time. In fact, it's been, if you're in Wisconsin, pay attention, 672 days since he last visited the great state of Wisconsin. And today, by the way, Joe Biden took a long break from campaigning. He needed to rest and relaxation. Remember that from the cartoon? After briefly stepping out of his basement bunker yesterday, delivering an extremely long 24-minute speech from an empty room, reading a teleprompter, and of course followed by 0 questions from his fawning press, the media mob, better known as state-run media. And of course, Biden is now suddenly condemning the violent riots. A little late, Joe. Remember a few weeks ago, Joe said he absolutely wants to redirect funds away from police. For months, he didn't have a single nice thing to say about any of the brave men and women that put their lives on the line daily. That's police around the country that protect and serve in very difficult circumstances. The 99% of good cops. Biden's campaign staffers actually donated to a fund that helped get rioters out of jail. He promises that he'll have a no bond policy, no bail policy, just like New York. Kamala Harris actually promoted this idiotic fund. Now, all of a sudden, they're backtracking 63 days before an election, and Joe and Kamala are attempting an election-time conversion, but not because they really care about the violence and destruction. Instead, for them, it's all about the polls. Look at this. According to Pew, the ongoing riots are now a top 2020 concern for all Americans, and it should be. Meanwhile, a brand new Emerson poll shows that Trump and Biden are in a statistical dead heat, the president closing the gap among suburban voters and minorities. Look at this. The president is now polling 24% with African-American voters. That is 3 times the support he garnered in 2016. If that number holds, this election or re-election is over. And of course, the media mob, they're working overtime to help rescue Joe and his struggling campaign. In the last 24 hours, they absolutely trashed President Trump for daring to visit the destruction in Kenosha. Well, the president restored order. He did it in Minnesota. He can do it in New York, Chicago, Portland, and Seattle if they just let him. Take a look.
Tomorrow, from officials there who think his presence will only inflame matters.
As protests in Kenosha enter their second week, the city braces for a controversial presidential visit.
And in Kenosha, officials tonight bracing for the president's planned visit tomorrow.
This is a city that has now seen days of peace, quiet, people getting along. There's a lot of unity right now in this city. And the biggest concern from them is that to have the president come here is just going to turn that all around. For a lot of people tomorrow, I think they're bracing for what's to come.
And there at Fake News CNN, the panic is really setting in without a shred of evidence. They have one of their dumb so-called political analysts, a Clinton-Obama sycophant, probably the dumbest press secretary in history, his name Joe Lockhart, floating a whole new conspiracy theory that the president of the United States suffered a series of mini strokes and he's hiding from the American people in broad daylight, out every day, answering questions. Just more lies, more fake news, more conspiracy theories from CNN. The president's doctors, they said 1,000% false. So where's the apology for yet more lies and more hoaxes and more conspiracies from CNN? They are just repulsive. Lockhart, the left, they are stricken. They're throwing anything and everything at the wall in the hopes that something sticks. Look at what they allowed this lying jackass Lockhart to say about Nicholas Sandmann. By the way, I hope Linwood sues CNN again. He's already gotten a lot of money. And by the way, Dr. Lockhart, your candidate, the frail, the weak Joe Biden, does he seem, Joe, if you're so intelligent, does this guy seem very mentally alert to you? Let's take a look at the videotape.
Tomorrow's Superstar Tuesday, and I want to thank you all. I tell you what, I'm rushing ahead, aren't I? We hold these truths to be self-evident. All men and women created by you know the thing. If you agree with me, go to Joe 30330. We choose truth over facts. Play the radio. Make sure the television, make sure you have the record player on at night, the phone. Make sure the kids hear words.
Hey, Dr. Lockhart, what's your diagnosis there? Now, make no mistake, the mob, the media, the Democrats, they're in full panic mode. And sadly, in the next 63 days, I promise you it will only get worse. Just listen to what President Trump had to say about the mob earlier today.
The press should be ashamed of themselves. I think the press is actually, the media is what's fueling this, more so than even Biden, because Biden doesn't know he's alive. The press is really fueling this, and they're fueling it horribly. And you're doing a great disservice to your country.
They lie in unison. The same words, the same phrases, the same talking points. The mob, the media, they are the biggest donors to all things radical democratic socialist. And Biden's answered less than 50 questions since March, and they're letting him get away with it. But let not your heart be troubled. The mob, the media, guess what? They are not in control of the future. You, the American people, in 63 days, you have the power. I don't have it. They don't have it to shock the world again.
All right, so keep that in mind. If you want to vote Trump, make sure you, and you're not registered to check, you can text 880, and so I do believe it's text vote. Yeah, text vote to 88022 to vote Trump for this year. I know I will, because I'd be damned if Biden could be a president. You know, the guy. Yeah. Biden likes to leave the keys. Yeah, let us know if Mike's working. I think it might have worked out the kink there. Opening. I've heard you firsthand. Yes, Angel. Weasel for President 2024. Weasel slide. That doesn't sound right. Weasel slide. All right, cool. Hey, if I become president, free cable TV for everybody.
And there's free alcohol.
Yeah. We'll get Budweiser to endorse us. Anheuser-Busch. Anheuser-Busch. But anywho, so coming back here to the studio view. Here we are. Got a bunch of blinky lights going on. Fast boys, what you going? Alright, so what's your next topic there? Oh, the numbers. positive when Donald Trump comes to town. And then when Donald Trump leaves, he's, oh, guess what? It was a false positive. It's still less than 1%. It's still less than 1% of the Ohio population. Yeah, slightly more. Yeah. We go back. Oh, sports. Care less about sports. Go Browns, by the way. Yeah. Well, it's less than. You want to get my opinion on sports in general? I mean, don't get me wrong. I like baseball. I like basketball. I like football. I like most sports. But the point is, my problem with it is, how in the hell are you going to pay somebody millions and millions of dollars to play a game, and then you've got hard-working Americans that bust their ass every single day, and they make $9, $10 an hour. It's just not even fair. It's not right. And that's the way the cookie crumbles. The funding for the Postal Service is in dire straits right now.
They're trying to make everybody vote for Biden by mail-in votes, and if you're voting in for like Trump or any other people or Biden, they're changing out different votes. Say you're voting for Trump, they'll see that you're voting for Biden. They're trying to make numbers wrong. But you vote for in person, numbers will be correct. They might have military members there at the doors waiting for people to come in, and we'll take care of the votes instead of the people. Yeah. A lot.
Not only that, you're gonna get the whole Democratic side of it. Let's say Trump wins the election, which I pray to God that he does win. Okay. Then you're gonna have the Democratic Party say they're gonna blame Trump, saying that he doctored the votes, and then it's gonna work the other way around. If Biden wins, it's gonna be which they probably would. But this whole mail-in voting crap. No, if you can go to and vote in person, do it. Don't fall for this bipartisan, voting mailing or whatever they call it. Screw that. I am going to vote for a person. I am not going to send in a damn mail vote. I'm not doing that. No way.
Like the voting, like Kyle, or like you were saying, if you're going to be voting, you can vote in person. If you're going to work, you can vote in person. If you go to the stores, you can vote in person. It doesn't matter. You should vote in person. That's why I think. No, I'm saying if you go to the store, you can vote in person. And this whole
mind with the case numbers, the more cases that hospitals diagnose, the more money that they receive from the state for diagnosing the COVID-19. So you have people that have passed away that are getting diagnosed with COVID-19. Like I said earlier in the show, on our first hour about the. Matter of fact, I have it saved on my phone here.
Well, the hospitals are actually getting $40,000 per person who goes to the hospital for like a little cough or something else. You know, they're just saying, "Oh, you got COVID," but you don't actually have COVID, or you have a chest pain or a heart attack. They're really making $40,000 off one person, and they're getting paid for it.
I'm gonna let Gunner take over and read this story for you.
Troy Whittington receives a letter this week telling him his mother has tested positive for COVID-19 and that she should isolate herself for 10 days. There was only one problem. She had been dead for nearly 7 months. Whittington received a letter from Shelby County, Tennessee Health Department, SCHD, this week, telling him that his mother had been tested on June 20th of this year, according to WATN-TV. However, Senator Whittington died from COPD on February 16th. The first case of COVID-19 was detected in Shelby County on March 8th. According to CHHD press release, 2 weeks after Senator Whittington died. As a Republican, Shelby County has been seen 27,410 cases of COVID-19 and 393 deaths from disease, according to Johns Hopkins University Corona Tracking Device, or not device, not that, Corona Tracker.
Having a hard time understanding how we can say someone has COVID-19 when they are not even alive. Troy Whittington told WATN. Through the letter, told us the late Sandra Whittington to isolate herself for 10 days. If the letter were accurate, she would have been tested over 60 days before receiving her results. We're talking 2 months later. She needs to be quarantined for 10 days, and we've got 60 days from the time the test was given to get the letter out to her, which is unacceptable, Whittington said. The SCHD apologized and told Newsweek it was looking at its procedures to keep a situation like this from happening again. What kind of crock of bullshit is that? You know, it's messed up. You know, you sit there and send letters out to dead people saying, "Oh, you tested positive for COVID-19." There's another thing with the false positives sitting there telling everybody that these are our numbers, this is how they died. And if you look at, like Alex Jones said in his episode, if you believe 2 days ago, one of his good friends had contacted him and somebody had passed away, and they're like, "Oh, he died from COVID-19." And then you look at him, how old was he? Oh, he was like 86 years old and he had cancer. And they're saying, "Oh, he died from COVID-19." No, the cancer killed him. You know, that's what I was saying 2 days ago. You know, it's shit like that. They sit there and they say, okay, this person's dying, this person's dying, this person's dying. Oh, we'll just say they have COVID-19. It's a bunch of bullshit. You look at the Republican Party versus the Democratic Party. The Democratic Party, everyone in the speeches, everybody's wearing masks, and their crowds are wearing masks, and that. You see Donald Trump's interviews and his speeches and that, and hardly anybody has masks on. It's bullshit. It's you know, I'm not saying that the COVID-19 is all bullshit, but they are making it out to be something bigger than it actually is. More people worldwide died from the flu each year than people who has died so far from COVID-19, and that's a fact.
The deep state, well, the deep state is basically people who try and take over the world and mess all of us up and control all of us. And right now there's pedophiles out there that the deep state has, and they're trying to cover it up like so many people. There is a list of people out there they have put out of pedophiles on the government side. They don't want to really tell people that, and the whole Trump is trying to tell the truth, and they're trying to cover that up. Snowden, he got everything out there on every government politics. So he's always trying to tell the truth, and they're trying to get rid of him, kill him off. And other than that, Trump's trying to bring him back. So Trump is really going to give him a waiver saying, hey, he is good, he's back in America for good, he's not going to jail for nothing. So the Democrats are really trying to get rid of him.
Alright, so we're going to play this video for you. I want your input on this. This is an interview, I do believe this is the right video. It's a video interview with Donald Trump, and he actually admits to the deep state, brings it out, exposes it, and everything like that. So here we go. And this is one ad that I don't mind playing, so I'll go ahead and let the ad play.
Every weekend I see it, not even weekends now, they're doing it during the week. And I just wish I had time. I'd get on one of those boats and I'd be carrying a flag also. But I have to say, it looks like you're having a good time. I just want to thank everybody. I see that, and the whole world is watching. And you people are fantastic. Your spirit, your strength, and you get it. You know what you're doing. So go out and have a lot of fun and celebrate. And the big thing is November 3rd, get out and vote. We can't let the radical left take over this country. They'll raise your taxes by 3 to 4 times. They're looking at 90% rates, 90, 95, and they won't be able to afford that. They need 300%. These people are crazy, and we have to stop them. Thank you very much.
As the Russia plot thickens, the deep state is going mainstream.
All right, tonight we start with proof the deep state is real in America and that you, the American people, see what is really going on.
It's about a deep state trying to drag a crook across the presidential finish line and trying to destroy the man Americans wanted in the Oval Office.
Donald J. Trump.
Once the preserve of conspiracy theorists, now the President of the United States calls himself a victim of it.
Unelected deep state operatives who defy the voters to push their own secret agendas are truly a threat to democracy itself.
For believers, the deep state is a mysterious faction of opposition bureaucrats. In Trump's case, a shadowy cabal of Obama supporters entrenched in government, intent on bringing him down.
A belief firmly held by Corey Lewandowski, Trump's former campaign manager.
He had a phone conversation with Theresa May. That phone conversation transpired in Air Force One. I believe Air Force One has a secure line of communication, particularly when he's having a conversation with a world leader.
So you think leaks are evidence of a deep state?
But no less than, of course, no less than 30 minutes after hanging up that phone call, the media was reporting on the conversation that transpired. That should be an issue of national security.
Isn't it more about concern that the President of the United States is creating conflict with an old ally? Isn't that the reason these things are coming out? Because his behavior is troubling a lot of people?
Those are classified conversations, and the leaking of classified information is punishable by putting people in prison.
Here, Mike, good morning.
I'm going to let people know I'm a true conservative. Just tell it how it is.
But right-wing media sees Robert Mueller's investigation into possible collusion with Russia as the deep state in action. Before its conclusion, Trump's supporters have already made up their
They
minds.
stand for freedom across the world.
If the deep state has a hand in the Russia investigation, then you should be deeply suspicious of its conclusions. If any investigation is biased by the preferences of the people who arranged it, you should be deeply skeptical of its conclusions.
Accused architects of the deep state say Trump is using the idea to deflect all criticism. Former CIA chief Michael Hayden insists that countering Trump on issues like his travel ban does not equal deep state.
It shouldn't have come as a surprise, but it was a bad idea. It made us less safe. If you want to call pushing back against that evidence of the deep state, go ahead. But I come back to my view. Career professionals governed by the rule of law, trying to do the right thing for the country.
What concerns you? What keeps you up at night?
My greatest concern that the most destabilizing force in the world today is the United States of America. And we appear to be erratic, and we appear to be moving back away from the key tenets of our foreign and security policy.
Are you worried?
Of course I'm worried.
Trump has worked hard to delegitimize the Russia investigation that could come to define his presidency. If unfavorable, he'll likely do the same with Robert Mueller's findings. But blaming the deep state will only get him so far. Amanda Walker, Sky News, Washington.
Are you tired of the media spinning the truth and pushing false narratives? Well, take a look at this. Over the last 3 years, while the establishment
Mr. President, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
On Friday, Ted Wheeler, the mayor of Portland, sent a letter to you saying, basically, we don't want your help, you make matters worse. Saturday, one of your supporters is murdered in Portland by, it looks like, a suspected Antifa individual. And then on Sunday, Wheeler comes out and Biden and essentially tries to blame shift to you for the violence there. Your reaction?
Well, these are terrible and very incompetent people. Portland's been burning for many years. For decades it's been burning, but now it's gotten to a point they don't want to do. I watched the mayor try and get in with these people, and he went to a protest, and he went in and they almost killed him. If he didn't have security with him, he had 5 security guards, he would have been dead, just like they would have done to Rand Paul, who's a great guy, and his wife, Kelly. It is a disgrace when you look at what's happening. Now, we sent in Homeland Security. The reason we sent them in was to protect our courthouse. We have a $300 million courthouse, and they wanted to blow up our courthouse or burn it down. Take your choice. Blow it up or burn it down, they said. And I said, no, that's not happening. So they wouldn't protect it because the mayor said he doesn't care. So we sent in our Homeland people. They did a great job. Immediately, Homeland Security. Immediately, it was protected. And that's the only reason they were there. I've offered to send in the National Guard. I've offered to send in anybody they want. I could put that out in 45 minutes and it would stop. And I think the people of Portland and the people of Oregon, I know it's a liberal state, considered liberal, they're tired of it. They're tired of having, of living with this curse. They're living with a curse. They say that when you walk through the streets of Portland, this is years and years of burning, and it's
not last 90 days. It's been really
no. It's been horrible in the last 90 days. But no, it's been going on for many, many years. It's like you're in. I won't name the city, but it's a city someplace in the world that's not so good. Okay, it's a terrible situation.
The Oregon governor said no one is safe in Donald Trump's America.
Yeah.
They're trying to turn the tables on you
trying.
after months of, they're not really saying much about the violence.
Right, but they won't ever.
Hi, it's Sam Barker here from the Motley Fool. Behind me is Landmark Mall. Or what?
Never criticize anybody that really, that's a violent person, frankly. That's violent. They stick up for the violence. They don't, the people that are getting hurt, they don't care about. They don't care about these people. It's a weird thing. It's like warped minds. And for the last 93 days, I've been offering to send, and as you know, they have to take the offer. They have to ask to have help. I've been standing and I've been saying, anytime you're ready, we'll put it out.
What's motivating them, Mr. President?
I think it's a sickness, actually. I think there's a fear. I watched the way they treated this Mayor Wheeler when he was standing there, and I'll tell you how unfair the news is. NBC News didn't show that he was being shouted at and cursed at, and he ran, literally, he had to run for his life because they were going to really hurt him. He had security. If he didn't, he would have probably...
Well, they showed up as an apartment building over the weekend.
No, how he can still stick up for him. I think there's a fear. I think he's afraid.
Are they afraid that Oregon could be in play because of people's concern about law and order? Is that what you're saying?
It could. I don't know. No. I think that, like the Mayor Wheeler, I think he's probably afraid for his life because if you would have seen him... But I'll show you how dishonest. NBC News put on, and they didn't have the people shouting. They had him standing there, and they talked about how it was a show of great unity, the mayor standing with the people. Those people were going to kill him. They were saying things that I can't repeat right now, but horrible things. But they didn't put that on. I actually happened to see the real tape on Fox. He escaped with his life, and yet he doesn't want any help. It's so unfair to the people of Oregon. We could solve that problem quickly, like I did in Kenosha. You know, Kenosha went through 3 or 4 days of, you wouldn't have a Kenosha right now. We demanded that they send in the National Guard, call the governor, and in all fairness, the governor did it. Not enough, but it was enough to put it out, and we ultimately put in more. We had 1,000 people, and we put it out quickly. You wouldn't have Kenosha right now.
In Pittsburgh today, Joe Biden gave a speech, and he spoke directly about this violence.
He may believe mouthing the words law and order makes him strong, but his failure to call on his own supporters to stop acting as an armed militia in this country shows how weak he is.
Hi, I'm Nikki Haley.
This is Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell.
Hello, I'm Senator Lindsey Graham.
I'm Ted Cruz.
Hi, it's Marco Rubio.
Republican Senator Steve Daines has been one of my father's strongest allies.
He is.
Your response to the vice president, sir?
Look, he's a weak person. He's been weak all his life, but now he's really weak. He shouldn't be running for president. He should not be there.
But do you want your supporters to confront the left-wing protesters, or do you want to leave it to law enforcement?
No, I don't want them. I want to leave it to law enforcement. But my supporters are wonderful, hardworking, tremendous people, and they turn on their television set, and they look at a Portland, or they look at a Kenosha before I got involved and stopped it, or they look at Chicago, where 78 people were shot last weekend and numerous people died. or they look at New York, where violence is up by like, what, 150%. It's up by a number that nobody, and people are leaving. They're looking at all of this, and they can't believe it. They can't believe it, whether it's my supporter or not.
But you don't want them showing
no,
up to
I
try
don't.
to...
Well, it's a peaceful protest. I mean, they were protesting. They weren't. You know, it's amazing. They want to protest, and they get criticized. The other people run through the streets, burn down storefronts, hurt people, beat people, and kill people, kick people in the face. That would have happened to Rand Paul, by the way, and his wife, except that you had 2 and then ultimately 4 very good policemen who took a big beating. They took a big beating. And they really saved Rand Paul. In fact, we're going to bring him into the White House and give him some kind of an accommodation, because they really, what they did was very brave, actually. I mean, can you imagine? I'm saying policemen were brave because they're escorting, but they're escorting a U.S. senator and his wife. And as Rand said, he would have been killed if they weren't there.
Isn't it true also, Mr. President, that the Democrats have been, in their own way, inciting this violence against individuals for almost as long as you've been in office?
Sure. If you see anybody from that cabinet, you get out and you create a crowd. And you push back on them. And you tell them they're not welcome anymore, anywhere.
Please, get up in the face of some Congress people.
There needs to be unrest in the streets.
The domestic enemies to our voting system and our honoring our Constitution are right at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue with their allies in the Congress of the United States.
It's not only the Democrats, it's the media, the fake news. The news is so fake. Like I told you with the mayor, where they make him look like it's a great unity thing when actually they were cursing at him and they would have done big numbers on him, but they don't show that. They just show the mayor standing with these very tough thugs, and he was gone, okay? They saved him. But NBC shows it like it's unity with the people. I don't get it. I don't know why they're doing it. And I will say this, at some point, I will not be president.
Really?
Hopefully that'll be in 5 years from now, but I will not be president. And they're going to die. They're all going to die. Can you imagine if they had to cover Sleepy Joe Biden? It won't be very much fun. But much more importantly, our country would go to hell. Our stock markets will crash. As sure as you're sitting there, we will have problems like you've never had. But if you take Kenosha, and if you take other parts of the country that I don't even talk about, I could show you things that we've done to stop this kind of a thing that's happening in Portland and happening in Chicago and happening in other places.
Most red states are cooperating with federal law enforcement, and things are relatively calm in red state America. But Biden said again today in Pittsburgh that essentially you're not going to be safe in Donald Trump's America.
So if it weren't Donald Trump's America, to just use the expression as I'm president, you would have riots like you've never seen. The Democrats have lost control of the radical left. And if you look at Bernie and I call it the manifesto that was agreed to with Biden and his group, that's further left than Bernie ever was. They won't be able to control these people. These people have lost control of these people, and it's hurting them. Don't forget, Biden wasn't going to come out of his basement until the election. Now he had to because the polls are so good. For me, now he had to because the polls are different. So all of a sudden he's in Pittsburgh. He wasn't going to leave his basement. Then he said, okay, he's leaving, but he won't leave for 10 days. 10 days is a long time. So in the meantime, like on Sunday or Saturday, I'm in Texas, I'm in Louisiana. I was going to stop in 2 other places. Fortunately, they didn't get hit. Arkansas wasn't hit very much, et cetera, et cetera. I would have stopped. But I'm all over the place. I leave early in the morning. I get home late at night. And that's what you have to do as president.
And
Joe doesn't have energy.
Tomorrow, you're going to Kenosha, Wisconsin, of course, the scene of so much unrest lately. And the governor says he doesn't want you to come. Why is it important for you to be seen by the people of Wisconsin now?
Because I am a tremendous fan of law enforcement, and I want to thank the law enforcement. They've done a good job. And when the governor says that I shouldn't come or he'd prefer that I not come, I'm the one that called him and said, Tony, you got to bring out the National Guard. Well, I don't really want to do it. Tony, you got to bring it out. And unlike your governor of Oregon that just keeps saying no, He agreed to it at least. Now, he agreed to a small number, but the small number was plenty.
But isn't it a political motivation? They don't want you to come to blue state America because they don't want the media to have to cover what's really happening on the ground.
True.
Isn't this political?
Oh, that's true. If you look at what's going on in blue, as you call it, blue state America, blue city America, you look at what's going on in New York, you look at what's going on in these states. Chicago is a disaster. Portland, you look at Portland. Now, Portland's a little different. That's anarchists, and that's, I actually think in many ways that's easier to handle. I think Portland is very easy to handle because that's a group of anarchists that are paid by the outside. And, you know, we put a lot of people in jail. I don't know if you know this or not. Remember 3-4 months ago, we were having a problem with monuments. They were ripping down statues and monuments all over the
Democrats
place.
didn't say anything about that.
No, the Democrats had no control. It actually got out of control even for them. I signed in an executive order, 10 years in jail if you knock down a statue or a monument. You haven't heard one thing about it. You haven't. We wouldn't have. They were going after Thomas Jefferson. They were going after Lincoln, and they were going after the Washington Monument if they could knock that one down. They were going after everything. And I actually don't even think they know. I think they're just thugs. I don't think it may be an ideology and it may not. It is an ideology for the people that are paying them. And the funny thing is, and the strange thing is, the people that are paying them and all this money, because somebody's doing it.
What about the corporations?
They travel, well, wait, the people paying them, those people will be overthrown. Their lives will be taken away. Their lives will be endangered. They're all going to be gone. They're just stupid, foolish people that made a lot of money.
But corporations have given an enormous amount of money in the tens of millions or maybe hundreds of millions to Black Lives Matter.
Because they're weak.
Which is all over a lot of these protests. So what does that mean about these corporations? Why are they paying that money out, Mr.
Because
President?
they're weak people, led by weak people, in many cases, not all corporations.
What does that mean, they're weak
I looked
people?
at numbers where one company is giving hundreds of millions of dollars.
When you say they're weak, what do you mean? Explain
Because
that.
they just do what's the easiest path. That's not the easy path. That's a very dangerous path. Black Lives Matter is a Marxist organization. You remember pigs in a blanket, fry them like bacon. That was the first time I ever heard of Black Lives Matter. I said, that's a terrible name. It's so discriminatory. It's bad for black people. It's bad for everybody. And all of a sudden it becomes like sort of, although now if you look, it's going way down because people are tired of this stuff, what's going on, the Black Lives Matter. If you look at what's going on with the bats and a lot of thugs.
Running through D.C. last night.
Oh, it's terrible what's going on. But Black Lives Matter came into existence walking down the street screaming, pigs in a blanket, fry them like bacon. And that was about police officers. That was representing police. They were pigs in a blanket, like the sausages or hot dogs, fry them like bacon.
Well, they were saying worse over the last couple of days in D.C.
Oh, I think even worse, yeah, probably.
No, it's gotten,
I don't know, do you get worse?
But DOJ's role in trying to really hit the law enforcement accelerator here against these groups. A lot of the individuals coming into Wisconsin have been tracked as out-of-staters, the ones who've been arrested.
We have them all.
Can DOJ do more, and what could they do to really start putting the fear of God in these violent, not the peaceful protesters, but violent protesters?
So they have under investigation a lot. In fact, I'll show you. I just had this because of this very important interview with you. But I just, and I'll give this to you, in Kansas City, violence has decreased by a third since the initiative began. In Indianapolis, 49 guns confiscated. More than 1,000 arrests have been made under the initiative. DOJ is addressing violence and crime across the country. FBI, but you don't read that. The FBI and ATF are assisting the Portland Police Department. But you can't do much when you have absolutely no cooperation.
But if they don't think they're going to go to jail for 10 years for doing what they're doing, then they're going to keep doing it. So how does a Trump re-election calm things down in the United States? Biden says he's going to calm things down. How will a Trump re-election calm? Why? Why won't he calm things down?
Biden won't calm things down. They will take over. They will have won. If Biden gets in, they will have won. He's a weak person. He's controlled like a puppet. So it's not going to calm things down. It's going to be they will have won. They will have taken over your cities. It's a revolution. You understand that. It's a revolution. And the people of this country will not stand for that. They're not going to stand for that. The vast majority of people feel like me. They feel like every time I put Law and Order up on social media, it gets such an incredibly positive response. The people of this country will not stand for it. If you say calm things down, yeah, calm things down because they will have taken over. Take a look at what's going on. And Biden, well, Biden is, I don't even like to mention Biden because he's not controlling anything.
Who do you
They
think is
control
pulling
him.
Biden's strings? Is it former Obama
People
officials?
that you've never heard of, people that are in the dark shadows, people that
What does that mean? That sounds like conspiracy theory. Dark shadows.
No,
What is
and
that?
people that you haven't heard of. They're people that are on the streets. They're people that are controlling the streets. We had somebody get on a plane from a certain city this weekend, and in the plane, it was almost completely loaded with thugs wearing these dark uniforms, black uniforms with gear and this and that. They're on a plane.
Where's this?
I'll tell you sometime, but it's under investigation right now. But they came from a certain city, and this person was coming to the Republican National Convention. And there were like 7 people on the plane like this person, and then a lot of people were on the plane to do big damage. They were coming for
Planning
other
for
reasons.
Washington.
Yeah, this is all happening.
But the money is coming from somewhere.
Money is coming
How can it be
from
tracked?
some very stupid rich people that have no idea that if their thing ever succeeded, which it won't, they will be thrown to the wolves like you've never seen before.
Angel, you took my lighter. All right, so on those videos, you have to let me know what you think about those. But yes, Donald Trump admitted that the deep state does exist and all that good stuff. So, you know, there's just a lot going on with this. This is probably the most interesting presidential election in history, as far as I know. There's never been an election that is how would you say it? It is not competitive, not popular, but childish. Basically, as childish as this one, and important. You know, it's like the country is on the brink of annihilation, depending on who gets voted president. It's like, do you want your country to burn in hell, or do you want it to prosper? You know, it's what it comes down to. And you know, I've never been a political person, and I never had major opinions on politics. But ever since Donald Trump, you know, ran against Hillary, you know, I've been in it. You know, I've been listening and keep it up and all this stuff, and it's just like, wow. Yeah. I have a video that I'm going to cue up here in a moment, just because of this comment. He had mentioned that. I'm not biased. I'm not going to judge somebody for their political beliefs or anything like that. You know, you said you didn't like Trump, you didn't like Biden. I sure as hell don't like Biden. But one thing I will tell you is Donald Trump has never even considered presidency, running for president until the last, right before the last, last presidential election. But I'm going to give you a history on the interviews from Donald Trump. And when he talks about making America great again, he has been saying that since day one, since the 1980s. He's been saying that. So on that note, I'm going to hand over to Gunner, and then we'll get to this video.
I would like to say, you want to check out X22 Report. They have a lot of every information out there on Biden, the president, election, the virus going on. I would like to say, check them out. It's X22 Report, not X22 Report.
Before he
Spotlight. They have everything that you should know called the X22 report. Check it out on their website. Yep. There we go.
Okay, so like I was saying, so this is like a history of interviews from Donald Trump, starting from the 1980s, and it's basically how Donald Trump created Donald Trump. So one thing I will say and affirm to you is that Donald Trump has been saying this since day one, since his very first interview. So here you go.
Before he was a presidential candidate,
And I've been saying for years, keep the oil, don't let them have the oil.
before he was a reality TV star,
You're fired.
Donald Trump was a New York tabloid fixture. All through the 1980s, Trump was busy building something new, and it wasn't a skyscraper.
Billionaire developer Donald Trump has put his name on a New York City hotel, shopping center, and apartment buildings, as well as a casino in Atlantic City. And now he's going to put his name on a big piece of Eastern Airlines.
Trump was creating a public persona, one that could be both funny and demeaning, arrogant and somehow in touch with the common man.
I sort of love and hate him at the same time. I mean, I think he has, a monumental ego.
He comes off as being very, what's the word I'm looking for?
Arrogant?
Yeah, he's arrogant.
I like him.
You do?
Man got it made, got everything.
He often did this by picking fights.
He said, I think Donald Trump is an artful liar. I think he is a greedy, vicious, and arrogant man.
Well, I don't know, is that supposed to be a compliment or not? I'm not sure.
He waged a years-long battle with New York City Mayor Ed Koch.
I hope that New York City has a different mayor at some point, because I think Ed Koch is a total disaster. He's been a very bad mayor for the city.
He helped launch a competitor to the NFL called the U.S. Football League, and then launched a lawsuit against the NFL when the USFL failed.
The jury in the case delivered its verdict. It ruled the NFL did indeed monopolize pro football, but it awarded damages of just $1.
And in one of his biggest fights of the 1980s, he went up against media mogul Merv Griffin in a fight over a casino in Atlantic City.
People realize now that Merv made a bad deal. It's unfortunate that he's taken a fall, but he has taken the fall. Nothing much I can do about it.
Donald loves that perception. I won. He is still, a year later standing in New York going, I won. He wants to make sure everybody in America knows he won.
But the Donald Trump we know today is more than just a boastful brawler. That's because there's one more tactic that Trump apparently learned in the 80s and uses to great effect on the campaign trail today. Keep people guessing about any long-term plans.
Mr. Trump, what's left in your life? You're 33 years old. You're worth all this money. You say you didn't say that you want to be worth $1 billion.
No, I really don't. I just want to keep busy and keep active.
Could $1 billion buy the White House? What do you think?
Well,
Does
I don't
money
think it
give
can.
you...
I know a lot of the politicians. I like a lot of the politicians. They're friends of mine.
Trump carefully cultivated speculation about his future. In 1987, he ran a full-page ad in major newspapers that read like a political manifesto.
A blow-up of the ad is now on display at Trump Tower on Fifth Avenue.
The ad was irresistible to the New York press, and the move kept Trump's name in the news.
Trump has said quite seriously that he's a good enough bargainer to negotiate a nuclear disarmament treaty with the Russians.
This is not a wealthy country. People think America, wealth, this and that. The Japanese are saying that. What a wealthy country. I mean, they're saying it and they're laughing. The country's losing $200 billion a year. We ought to go in, the next time they fire so much as a bullet at one of our ships, we ought to go in and take over their oil.
With each of these instances, Trump refined his playbook. His attacks.
Steve, you're going to have to start pushing these people now a little bit, because it's getting a little ridiculous as far as I'm concerned.
His boasts.
We'll probably sell an extra 10,000 season tickets, and that's a lot of tickets.
And his shifting positions.
Do you have the genes to be a successful politician?
Well, you never really know. I think I'm pretty outspoken, and that's not probably a good thing in terms of a politician, but it's a good thing if you ever got elected, you can really do a job.
Now, even back in the 80s, many found Trump's over-the-top personality distasteful.
What may be most discouraging of all is that Palm Beach will accept almost anything if it's got enough money, but somehow it will not accept Donald Trump.
But by playing the role of an unpredictable bully with the Midas touch, Trump showed he couldn't easily be ignored.
I believe that perhaps I'm portrayed differently than I actually am. I believe I'm portrayed in a rougher sense than the actual product. And I hope that's true, because I hope the actual product is a lot more mellow than the portrayal.
And that may be his biggest asset of all. When people attack Trump, they reinforce the version of Trump that Trump wants people to see. And inevitably, that keeps Trump's name in the news.
That doesn't matter because I'm not running for office.
Hey, NBC News fans, thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Subscribe by clicking on that button down here and click on any of the videos over here to watch the latest interviews, show highlights, and digital exclusives. Thanks for watching.
There is a huge fundraising deadline coming up for Senate Democrats, and they need your help right now.
There's one more video I'm going to play for you guys before we wrap this up for tonight. There's one more interview video for Donald Trump. So we're going to take a short break, and then we'll come right back to that video, and we'll be right back with you.
I would like to suggest a video on YouTube. It's X22 Report, and they will tell you everything about the conspiracy theory on what's going on, what's happening with the country, and what's going on with the world. And they're always really good. They're always on top of everything. And you can find them on their website, X22 Report, or you can go to Twitter. Their Twitter page is X22 Report. And there it is, the first one. We're going to pull this video first, real quick, for you guys for the X22 Report. It's 4 hours ago.
Hi, and welcome. You're listening to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 2269B, and today's date is September 6, 2020, and the title of the episode is People Are Uniting Behind the Scenes. They Never Thought This Would Happen. Let's talk about protecting yourself and privacy. The consumer credit reporting agency Experian has just experienced a recent data breach that revealed the information of about 24 million individuals and 800,000 businesses, exposing them to future phishing attempts. This should be a highlight to us all on how important it is to take our online identity seriously, and the best way to do this is through the use of a VPN. A VPN helps safeguard your information so businesses and websites are less likely to be able to use your information against you. The VPN I use is Virtual Shield, and I keep it on 24/7 while I'm browsing online. Virtual Shield has a strict no-log policy, plus it was built from the ground up specifically for privacy protection, not to make a profit off your data. Virtual Shield believes you have the right to remain private. Due to the recent pandemic, Virtual Shield is offering its services for 50% off to help customers in need to protect themselves, as well as a free 30-day trial. Go to virtualshield.com/X22 or click the link below. Let's get into the economic collapse, political and geopolitical news. Now, the deep state, the corrupt politicians, the mainstream media, they never counted on one important thing: the people waking up. They never thought the people would wake up. They never thought the people would unite. They never thought people would see through their entire plan. They thought that if they created riots, created protests, created COVID, create all of this and show the people their plan. And of course, they didn't do this on their own. Trump forced them into this. And they thought if they did this now, the people would be behind them, because they thought that they had everything prepared, that they had those people who were with them, that they would carry this out, they would move forward, and others would join them. But what is happening right now is that the majority, the silent majority, they're looking at this. They're questioning everything. They're not believing the mainstream media. They're not believing COVID, the projections. They're not believing that these are peaceful protests. They're looking at this saying, we don't want this for America. We don't like your plan. We don't want this plan. And as the deep state and the mainstream media and the corrupt politicians continue with this, and pushed even harder, it wakes even more people up. They never thought the people would unite behind the scenes. And that's exactly what is happening. Trump, his administration, they were counting on this. They were counting on people who are hardworking, who are raising their families, who want to live in peace, that they would unite behind the scenes. And we are seeing that. There are more and more people that are waking up and uniting than there are out there rioting and on the side of the mainstream media and the corrupt politicians. And they're panicking. There's panic in D.C. There's panic everywhere. And they can't stop it right now. And they have to continue because they think if they continue, they'll be able to control it. Actually, it's the opposite. Because everything that they've tried to do and everything they're going to try to do is going to backfire on them. It's going to boomerang right back at them. And as the patriots continually drip out the information, as they turn up the heat with the investigations, and they back these individuals into the corner, what are they going to do? They're going to do what they do best. They're going to lie to cover up what they did. But how is that going to work out as they do this? I mean, look at Strzok with his book, Compromised. You think people are going to be believing this? No, because when the real information comes out, which it has been, I mean, look at the entire investigation. We have Kevin Kleinsmith who manipulated an email to get the FISAs. These FISAs now are null and void. There's corruption within this case. And every time they try to tell their part of the story, their end of the story here, and they try to convince people, it gets worse and worse. Remember, the cover-up always gets you. And it seems that they are completely trapped. This is what Catherine Herridge tweeted out. Durham Flynn, as former FBI agent, Peter Strzok rolls out his book, Compromised, and takes ownership for steering FBI Russia probe. Worth revisiting page 3, IG Horowitz report. It found that it was his supervisor, Bill Priesteb, not Strzok, who ultimately made the decision to open up the investigation, July 31st, 2016. Why it matters. FBI decision to open up on a political campaign and who signed off became very important after controversial Strzok page text surfaced. Context? Operatives who work this national security space tell me it's counterintelligence 101 to avoid professional and personal conduct communications that leave you open to be compromised and blackmail. Everything that these individuals are trying to explain is coming back at them 100 times. And there's no way out. This is all falling apart around them. And it's showing that the investigation was plagued with cover-ups, with lies, with manipulation, and that they never had a case. Remember, when you go back to the beginning, there was no predicate for this whole entire thing, which means that all the FISAs, all their investigations, all their cases, they're going to be null and void. And that brings us to Flynn. Flynn is still in limbo. Why? Because Obama leaked out that phone call giving instructions to Sullivan saying stall until after the elections because we cannot have this individual speak to the press. He can't tell everyone what he knows. He knows where the bodies are buried. He knows everything. And we need to keep him out of the picture. But it seems that this is not working the way they thought it was going to work. Technofog tweeted this out. Department of Justice motion to dismiss is set for an oral argument on September 29th at 11 a.m. So what does that mean? Well, if they're following the law, which they haven't been, there's only one thing Sullivan can do when the Department of Justice itself files to dismiss the case. It's to say that he has no case. And I'm wondering if that's going to happen on September 30th. Exactly 30. That would be very interesting. Because it seems that everything is falling into place. And why are these individuals panicking? Why did California try to push SB 145? Well, that's to protect themselves, which they think that's going to protect themselves. But what do we see happening across the United States and across the world? There are all these different operations which are tracking down pedophilia, tracking down human trafficking, and finding children. Think about Operation Safety Net, Operation Never Forget. We know that they found a huge amount of children. And what's very interesting is that U.S. Marshals with Operation Safety Net, they found 2 more children on Cleveland's west side, a 14 and 15-year-old girl who were reported missing from Jackson Township on August 28th. So, once again, these individuals are panicking because everything that they've been trying to do, everything that they've been doing with human trafficking, pedophilia, it's all falling apart. And as they find more and more of these children, they find out who these individuals are. Remember, these are the low-level individuals. It leads all the way up to the elite. And as they catch more and more of these people, they get more and more of the story. Now, we know the elections are coming up. We know that all assets are deployed, and they're trying to convince the American public that Biden, which I don't believe is the real candidate, is going to win the election. I do believe he's going to be bowing out. There's going to be a replacement. They're going to try to use mail-in voting to create chaos, to try to stall the elections. But it seems that that plan is not going to work. Remember, there's many different countermeasures in place for this. And Praying Medic looked at a New York Times article and started to break it down to explain what might happen. He says 34 states permit vote by mail, 54% of the population. 9 states will mail ballots to all voters, 21% of the population. 7 states require an excuse for absentee ballots, 22% of the population. Remember, the Electoral College determines who is president, not the popular vote. Now, we've seen this before. We've seen in 2016, Clinton had 3 million more votes because of the illegal immigration and the voting manipulation that they had in place, but Trump won the Electoral College. And this is why, since that point in time, they wanted to get rid of the Electoral College. But what does this really mean? Well, Praying Medic says if the Democratic nominee wins all the states that mail ballots to voters, how many states are left? 41. And the Electoral College deadline is set in stone. If they aren't done counting and don't send them on time, they do not count. It seems that SCOTUS has always upheld the Electoral College deadline. You think POTUS knows this? Absolutely. He has all the other countermeasures in place. I do believe Trump, his administration, they've been preparing for this. Why do you think Bill Barr is working on fraud cases? Because they're going to present all of this. There's countermeasures all over because they know that the deep state, the mainstream media, the corrupt politicians, they know that if they present this countermeasure, they're going to move to another tactic. This is why they have multiple countermeasures in place. And look, they already started the smear campaign. The Atlantic magazine, they put out a garbage hit piece on Trump, and it alleged his hatred of the military and U.S. veterans, and we know that's completely untrue. Trump has done more for the U.S. military than any president in decades. Trump is also the first president in decades who did not start any new wars or sent American soldiers into conflict with unwinnable and dangerous restrictions. Think about all the other wars. Have we ever left any of these countries? Libya, Lebanon, Iraq, Syria, Afghanistan, Ukraine. No. One way or another, we're still supplying military assets, and we have troops there. What has Trump been doing? Removing all these troops. Actually, when Obama was president, they told us that we were going to be in Syria for 20, 30 years. It's just an unwinnable situation. The Islamic State is just way too powerful. And we don't know how they're continually gaining ground. It doesn't make sense. Well, this piece, this garbage piece that The Atlantic put out, it was immediately debunked. It didn't even last that long. And remember, it wasn't that long ago that The Atlantic was bought by Lawrence Powell Jobs, a huge Joe Biden mega donor. So it all makes sense now. Trump tweeted this out. Polak, the stunning synergy of The Atlantic's anonymous attack on Trump. Fake writer Goldberg is considered the unofficial stenographer of the Obama White House. Very interesting. Joe Biden is incapable of defending himself in his current mental state. So look for more crappy hit pieces on Trump in the coming weeks. Why? Because we're getting closer and closer to the elections. They're going to pull out everything, all anonymous sources. They're going to use propaganda. And I do believe it starts now. Actually, remember, they have the siege, which is going to start September 17th, where people are going to occupy Lafayette Park. So from this point on, right after Labor Day, moving forward, I think it already started, we're going to see so much garbage being thrown at Trump, it's going to be unbelievable. But with all the digital soldiers, with everyone doing research, with everyone debunking it, it's going to fall apart, not in days, not in weeks, but in hours and minutes. And this is what's been happening. Look at Pelosi. She went to a salon, and even the San Francisco Chronicle, they're even saying, hey, this was not good and it doesn't look good for you. Because San Francisco, they have specific restrictions. If you're going to get your hair done, it was going to be outside, not inside. But Nancy Pelosi got special permission, wore no mask, and she didn't care. And people have taken notice. Like I said, people are waking up now. And it seems there are certain states that are saying we're not going to lock down again. We're done with that. We have Greg Abbott from Texas saying we're done with this. We're not going to do locking down. Dan Crenshaw tweeted this out. The governor is understanding the success of his policies. Hospitalizations are at 4,203, the lowest it's been since June 23rd, decreased by 61% since the peak in July. Daily new cases have drastically decreased by 78% from 10,791 at its peak in July to 2,374 reported yesterday. DeSantis of Florida, the governor there, said, no more lockdowns. We are done. Cases are dropping, declining very, very rapidly. And what do we see happening? We see high schools, colleges, they're starting to bring back the people. We see student athletes and fans had a reason to celebrate because high school football is back. People were in the stands. People were ready for football. Let's talk about protecting yourself and privacy. The consumer credit reporting agency Experian has just experienced a recent data breach that revealed the information of 24 million individuals and 800,000 businesses, exposing them to future phishing attempts. The best way to protect yourself from being a victim to attacks like this is to use a VPN. The VPN I use is Virtual Shield. Virtual Shield has a strict no-log policy and was built from the ground up specifically for privacy protection. Due to the recent pandemic, Virtual Shield is offering its services for 50% off to help customers in need to protect themselves, as well as a free 30-day trial. Go to virtualshield.com/X22 or click the link below. Same thing's happening in other stadiums. Yes, maybe they're doing 25%, 20%, but what it means is people are going. They're not afraid. And the fear level is dropping. So what does the mainstream media and the corrupt politicians have to do? They can't have this happen, not before the elections, so they have to ramp up the fear. They have to project. So they're throwing around new projections of how many deaths are going to be. Well, by January, there's going to be 400,000. Well, what happened to the 2 million? What happened to all those other projections that didn't come true? Actually, you know those numbers that they're telling us, 150,000, 160,000, 170,000 that died? Actually, the CDC is saying that only 6% actually died from COVID. So that number goes from 150, 160, all the way down to 9,000, approximately. So even that number is way off. And of course, we see the mainstream media, they're out there saying that COVID-19 cases will surge in the fall, peak after Election Day. And these are the experts that are saying this. So what are they really saying? Cases are going to increase, which means healthy people, they're going to get tested, and it's going to show that they have the common cold. They're never going to have symptoms. They're never going to be hospitalized. They're not going to die. So all they're going to show is cases, because they can't show the rest. Those days are over. Why? Because there's certain safety precautions in place now, because Trump, the Patriots, they understand what they did. They brought people into nursing homes to kill them to increase the death rate. Can they do that anymore? No. So they have to rely on cases. Basically, what Trump has been doing with his administration is they've been taking each part of this pandemic away from them. Hospitalizations removed. Deaths removed. All they have left is cases. And that's even being questioned now. Are these tests reliable? Because there's many different forms of coronavirus, one of them being the common cold. So someone gets tested positive, then they get tested again, it's negative. They get tested again, it's positive. They get tested again, it's negative. And we even seen a world leader take a fruit and a sample from an animal, and they said that the fruit and the animal had COVID. So what we're seeing right now is a complete breakdown of this pandemic. And what's very interesting is because Q told us that this pandemic is going to end a day after election, and we're seeing a lot of documentation come out saying that things are going to go back to normal after the election period. And we're even seeing this from D.C. Mayor Muriel Bowser. She said, I think we all as a city need to be focused on getting kids back to school on November 9th. And we shouldn't expect life to go back to normal until kids are back in school. So she's already planning right now that on November 9th, everything is going to go back to normal in regards to the pandemic. And we're starting to see this from colleges and everything else, that right after the elections, everything is going to go back to normal. And I want to go back to post 4,537. Q gives us a earlier post, which is 3,957. This is April 14, 2020, and it says, when does NDA expire? Drudge our sale to foreign entity. I believe that's right after the election. Think 2020 presidential election +1. Removal blackout coming of pro-POTUS accounts. Win by any means necessary. All assets will be deployed this election. Sleepers that are pro will shift to nay, which we've been seeing. And it gives us a kill bracket around Paul Ryan Fox. Paul Ryan on Fox. Below this it says, when does COVID-19, with the kill brackets around 2, MSDNC fear push end? Think 2020 presidential election +1, D party death spiral. Then we go to post 4,587. And it says C19 narrative kill date, election +1 day. Prepare for 0-day massive cyber power attacks attempts on 11/4, because they already know they're going to lose the election, so they're going to try to use these power outages to create chaos. You won't even hear about the pandemic. And then we have this story from the New York Post. Phase 3 trials of coronavirus vaccine to take place at U.S. military sites, Pentagon confirms. And then, when we look back at some of Q's posts, it says, this is post 2724, it says February 14, 2019, a traitor's justice, phase 3, panic in D.C., rats everywhere. So it seems that phase 3 is coming, and they're panicking because they know that their pandemic is not going to hold up. The mainstream media, the corrupt politicians, they're also pushing the idea that the vaccine is going to be terrible for the American people because it's not tested long enough. Most likely it will not work. And it's a political tool before the elections. But what if there's another drug that's been approved by the FDA? It's been used for over 60 years. There's a huge amount of clinical data that shows it's not harmful. And that this drug has been used by many countries since March with virtually no side effects, but the benefits of curing COVID-19 are incredible. Plus, the drug also acts as a vaccine, and it's generic, so it's very inexpensive. How are they going to go up against this? This drug has already been out there. There's already proof. There's already clinical trials. It's already been peer reviewed. They've been trapped. Trump, the Patriots, they know exactly what is going on. And what has Trump done? Well, with the second event, he realized that for a very long time, and he said this before, they've been teaching children, they've been teaching government officials about race and changing history. So he decided that he's going to stop anti-American training on critical race theory. So the president and the Office of Management and Budget is ordering all federal agencies to cease and desist any government training programs that include any reference to a critical race theory or white privilege. The theory has long been in vogue with academics. Trump now seeks to root it out within the administrative state. Among the ideas underpinning CRT, now formally condemned by the White House, is that the law and all accompanying legal institutions are inherently racist, and that race itself has no biological grounds. The concept of ethnicity is instead the product of white society that uses system and institutions to advance its own interests at the expense of minorities. Why does this academic thesis matter? Because it drives government action, and because during the summer of unrest following George Floyd's death at the hands of Minneapolis police officers, the president has been asked numerous times if he believes that systematic racism is a problem in America. His answer has been no, and a clearer picture of his thinking comes in the form of a memo authored by OMB Director Russ Vought. It has come to the president's attention that the executive branch agencies have spent millions of taxpayer dollars to date training government workers to believe divisive, anti-American propaganda. For example, according to the press reports, employees across the executive branch have been required to attend trainings where they are told that virtually all white people contribute to racism, or where they are required to say that they benefit from racism. So right there, Trump is putting an end to that. With these programs, they're creating a divide. And the other thing that Trump is doing is he's getting rid of the 1619 Project. Now, he's directing the Department of Education to investigate California public schools' educational system, including the 1619 Project. This is a revisionist history plan promoted by the New York Times, which claims the United States was founded in 1619 when the first slaves arrived in Virginia. That's what they're doing, and Trump tweeted this out. Department of Education is looking at this. If so, they will not be funded. Senator Tom Cotton introduced a bill in July that would address schools' use of the 1619 Project. The bill proposed denying funds to any school that uses the 1619 Project in its curriculum. Ironically, the project was created by Nicole Hannah-Jones, and this individual received the 2020 Pulitzer Prize for commentary and not the award for history. The fictional account claims that the colonists fought the Revolutionary War not to liberate the colonies from British rule, but instead to preserve slavery. Now, think about what has been happening around the country. First, think about California, because Q has told us, watch California. Secondly, what have these rioters been doing? They've been removing history, removing statues. So in one phase, they've been teaching them a completely different history. The second phase, they're wiping out history of America, where they're going to bring in their own history that they created. You see what they're trying to do here? Which means they were going to go after the Constitution. So remove the statues, remove all these individuals, have people forget about history, and introduce a rewritten history and teach people that. That's what they're trying to do. And if they can do that, then, and they can do it on a large scale across the country, then they can get rid of the Constitution. It's infiltration from within, and that is what they've been doing. And this is why you see the riots. This is why you hear death to America. It's not about George Floyd. It's not about Black Lives Matter. It's about getting rid of the United States, getting rid of the Constitution, get rid of the history. This is their 16-year plan. And when you look, you can see They upped the riots this Labor Day. You see it out in Portland. You see it in Rochester now, where these individuals stormed a restaurant, kicked people out of their tables, smashed their dishes, threw chairs over the railing into the restaurant. It was a disaster. And then we had an assistant principal, Stephen Lisensko. He was out there. He was with these individuals, screaming at the police. And what else do we have? Well, those who are being arrested now, we're starting to find out who these individuals are. We have an individual who's a rich college student, was one of the 8 arrested in Black Lives Matter violence rioting in Manhattan. And there were other individuals. They were all attending college. This individual was attending Rice University. And they caused $100,000 in damage to different businesses. This is why they're trying to keep the kids out of college right now, because they can use them. Because if everyone goes back to college, how are you going to operate your riots? How are you going to operate these protests? You can't. So with the pandemic, they have the ability to keep these kids out of school and then use them for the riots. But it's not working. See, America is waking up. They're starting to realize what's really going on. And when they see things like this, they say, you know something? Not in my country. We're not going to have people going around as modern-day brown shirts, forcing themselves and destroying things that we have built. And it seems that Princeton University, this is coming from Byron York, they decided to study the 3 months of Black Lives Matter protests. And what was their whole intent? It was to show that they were overwhelmingly peaceful. But when they started to look at it, and they started to see what was really going on, the report reveals nearly 570 violent demonstration riots in nearly 220 locations spread all across the country. So it's not located in one little area. It's all over the place. This entire mission is being driven by George Soros, the central bankers, the elite, the corrupt politicians, the deep state players, to try to regain control. But they're losing control. And everything that they've tried, it has failed. It has not worked whatsoever. And we've seen it. Look at everything that they tried to do. All the accusations against Trump failed. Even the new ones failed. Impeachment, Russian collusion, the isms, you name it, all the hit pieces, continually failing over and over and over. But what do we really see happening? The silent majority behind the scenes, they're uniting. They're coming together and growing. Over this holiday weekend, Labor Day, we're seeing boat parades. Remember, watch the water. In Illinois, we're seeing people out in their boats with the American flag. Support Trump. We're seeing in D.C. a boat parade. Thousands of boats. Austin, Texas, we're seeing a boat parade. Thousands of boats flying the flag in support of America, in support of Trump. We're seeing in New Jersey, the silent majority came out, and they're all over the place, showing everyone, no, we're here. We're watching. We understand. Actually, out in Georgia, there's an estimated 4,000 boats that got together to create a boat parade for Trump. This is the silent majority. The silent majority is united behind the scenes. Even those people that weren't for Trump, they're saying, you know something? I don't like what's happening. I don't like the direction the country's going in. Trump called out the rioting right off the bat. He said, let's stop this right now. But the mainstream media, the corrupt politicians, they didn't want that. They pretended it didn't exist. And now Princeton tried to prove it, and they said, oh, wait a minute. This is in like 220 different locations. This is ridiculous. It's all over the place. And then Trump tweeted this out. The Democrats, together with the corrupt fake news media, have launched a massive disinformation campaign, the likes of which has never been seen before. They will say anything, like their recent lies about me and the military. and hope that it sticks. But MAGA gets it. Now, what's very interesting about this post, he's talking about disinformation. And that is in post 4,373. And it says, you are witnessing the greatest coordinated disinformation campaign to ever be launched against the American people. Information warfare, infiltration, invasion, insurgency, irregular warfare, efforts to regain power. Is it working? It is not, because behind the scenes, the silent majority, they're becoming closer, they're uniting, and it's growing exponentially. And it cannot be stopped. This is the deep state corrupt politicians' worst nightmare. And then, if you look at the timestamp of this tweet, which is 9:37, and we go back to that post, this is what it says. Glimpse. You cannot possibly imagine the size of this. Trust the plan. Trust there are more good than bad. The world is helping. We are not alone. We are all connected in this fight. Patriots, unite. We are winning big. Watch the speech. God bless. The Patriots are in control. Not the deep state, not the mainstream media, not the corrupt politician. Think about what they had to do recently. They had to admit that there were riots. Why? If they're in control, why would they have to admit this? Because they told us for months that there were no riots. They had to admit it because they looked at the poll numbers. They're not in control of the narrative. If you're in control of the narrative, you don't need any of this. You don't have to backtrack on what you say. This is proof that the silent majority is the controller. The silent majority is united. We have one voice. And the deep state, the mainstream media, they heard it. How did they hear it? Through the poll numbers. That's why they had to do an about face. But it's too late. Everyone's awake. We see it. And more people are waking up. Nothing can stop this. Nothing. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.
So make sure you guys check out the S01E04 report. They get a lot of information. I'm a subscriber and a supporter of them, so make sure you check them out because they always have really great stuff. Just like I said about Alex Jones, make sure you check out Alex Jones' channel, Infowars.com. He's got a lot of insight on what's going on out there in the world. I'm going to bring his little ad up here, and so make sure you check out Alex Jones' store because he's got the greatest vitamins and nutrients and stuff like that. So check him out. Get over here to the see that. There we go. So check out Alex Jones' store. He's got a lot of vitamins. He's got fish minerals and you also especially these cell phone koozies. These are great. If you don't want to be tracked by the government, you put your cell phone in these little cell phone koozies and they can't be tracked, because it stops any signals from coming in or coming out. And from what I heard, it makes you sleep better, which is good because less, radiation and stuff like that coming out of the cell phone and stuff like that. So, all right. So, anyways, head on over to Infowars. Check out Alex Jones. He's got a daily show, I do believe. I do know that he's got a 6 o'clock Sunday show, so check him out. We changed our time slot, so we're not interfering with his. So we'll be going on at 10 o'clock every Sunday night instead of 6 o'clock every Sunday night. So we will change our ads on that. So if you like what you heard today, please like and subscribe. Give it a thumbs up and hit that bell. And you'll get all the notifications when we go live. So I'm DJ Weasel.
I'm DJ Sly. And I'm Gunner.
And we'll see you next Sunday. All right. We love you guys. Stay safe. God bless America. And God bless everybody else out there. Or if you still have a cold beer in your hand, crack another one open. Have a couple more, and just lay back and relax. All right, we love you, and we're outie.